A bit like people. Careers are squiggly and they have different shapes and they just move around. You don't know what life is going to hit you with. And actually, if you have more flexibility in your career and actually what you want to do, it opens up so many opportunities. And the idea is you don't jump from shape to shape. You can choose whatever pattern you go to. So actually, your next career shape, maybe change direction. And a 9 box will never give you that. A 9 box will probably put you in the bottom quadrant, which means maybe you're not a great performer, which is actually not very true. It just might be that it's just not worked out. That's where that element of moving from programs to platforms comes in, because you're still having an underlying, this is what we want you to learn, but here are different styles that you can do it, and this is, you're going to learn it, but in a way that relates to you. There are so many different jobs that just didn't even exist a couple of years ago. So it's even more of a minefield to understand where you're going. And actually what we found was we need people to own their careers.
This episode of L&D Disrupt is brought to you by How Now, the learning platform that actually makes learning matter. Because let's face it, you could push out loads of content, track skills in a spreadsheet, drown in admin, and still not know what's working. Or you could use How Now to connect your people to the skills they need. Deliver learning in the flow of work and prove it's making a difference. That's how modern companies like Depop, Trainline, Crunchyroll, SoEnergy, Forsaven, TomTom, Investec, and so many more do it. Learn more at gethownow.com.
Welcome back to L&D Disrupt, and I'm joined today by Monika Holliday, who is Head of People at British Airways Euroflyer. Welcome to the podcast, Monika. So lovely to have you here with us. So I'm not going to introduce you. I would love you to introduce yourself to our listeners, to our viewers. Tell us about your career, how you got into HR, and what you're currently facing at your workplace today.
Amazing. Well, I won't read you my CV because that'd be very boring.
Yes.
But yeah, so I think I've got a really, really exciting job. And I've kind of, I suppose, got to where I am through just, I suppose, so many squiggles. I started my career all the way back in manufacturing. And across, I suppose, the last 10 years, I've done food industry, I've done retail, I've done media, and now I've ended up in aviation, working both in, as I say, Euroflyer. I also look after Gatwick Ground Services as well, so looking after people who are 35,000 feet up in the air to people down on the ground, and it's just absolutely mad. No single day is the same. Absolutely every day there's something new, there's something exciting. My day is very chaotic. It can be as strategic as it possibly could be, and then it could be absolutely operational as well. And I absolutely love that. So I feel very lucky to be in a job that gives so much breadth to that as well. How I've kind of got here, I was just saying that squiggle, for me, it's been so important to kind of see different industries, how they work, and to take those little bits with me as I've gone from career step to next job. And it's really been foundational, I suppose, how I kind of coach my team, coach other people, but also kind of how I move into other businesses. And I've probably kind of diverted more into let's go and do frameworks and processes, and let's go very linear to, okay, how do I take what I've learned here to the next place to see how do we make something even more exciting? How do we mould it towards the people who are actually in that industry? And I think probably that's the biggest thing at the moment, that is that driving force is you've got a really, really exciting workforce at the moment, and a really interesting one as well. If you kind of think over the last, well, are we allowed to say the COVID word?
You are.
Okay.
Say it.
So ever since COVID, the workforce and just the marketplace has just absolutely changed.
Yeah.
And we all, there'll be an amazing social psychologist who'll be able to tell us all about that. But you can just see it looking in, how we work, the hours we work. Hybrid now is something that you pretty much see on every job description now, all the time. And that has obviously had an impact on the workforce we have. People are staying in the workforce longer. It's actually a lot harder for younger people to get into the workforce. That work experience piece is really hard. But it also then means career shifts are either taking longer, they're not maybe happening at the speed they used to, or they're not happening as people would have assumed it to have been 5-10 years ago, which is a really, really interesting question, which does, though, I suppose, put a point on, are the frameworks and templates and processes that we have in today's businesses the right ones? And I'd probably say no, because they're based on a theory, based on a framework and a culture that isn't really as existent as it was. So I think the biggest thing at the moment is, how do I embed that culture, that forward thinking, that long-term strategic ideas, but actually start breaking down the molds of what has been maybe the frameworks and fundamentals of the last 10 years? How do we start building things that are based on the people who are in today, not on what has been there before? And that's really scary, because so much of kind of how businesses work is, well, we've done this for X amount of years, we know it's working, it's tried and practice. But one of the things I constantly hear is, especially when we're rolling out L&D programs or talent programs, is, well, I've already learned this from another company, or I've already done this. And you can see that, like, if you've been in a company for X amount of years and that's the only experience you've had, and that is great. People can be in businesses and be absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
But unless you kind of bring in that other diversity of thinking, programs, all of those, you can get very tunnel visioned, or you can get very one-sided in kind of how you see things. And which is why, like, programs do work in that element if you just keep doing them time after time. But the minute you kind of bring external talent in who've seen something different, or you start to kind of have more movement, those programs don't have as big an impact. And if you don't start changing them to reflect that shift in culture and shift in dynamics in your business, it actually then doesn't become such a good investment.
Yeah.
And actually trying to get people on that journey to see that can be difficult, because there's a cost associated with it, and everyone's looking at a cost at this moment in time. But it's also then embedding, like, what does talent, what does good look like, what does career actually progression look like going forward?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And it's like you have to, you should unlearn everything. What we knew back then, you kind of have to take that chance and go, right, forget what I know. Let's relearn like what is needed for the employee experience, and taking it back to that concept. So I completely agree with you. You touched on it already, but let's talk about, I know, which is a passion of yours, the multi-generational workforce. We both know people are living and working longer. Hooray that we're living longer. But they're in the workplace for longer, and it's going to continue to be that way. The retirement age is shifting higher and higher. So we've got 5, potentially 6, depending on how old. Like, some workplaces do have 6 generations in their company. How do you plan talent strategy, workforce planning around these kind of 6 or 5 generations? Most companies would have the 5 generations. What should you be kind of looking for?
I think it's shifting what you've already done, because I think there's always a little bit of a misnomer that you've got 5 different generations who are all wanting something different. I would probably hazard a guess that 99% of people come to work to do exactly the same thing.
Agreed.
They want to do a good job. They want to be paid well for it. They want to feel valued. They want to feel that they belong to that company. If everyone feels the same, your foundational culture and what you mean is going to be the same. It's just then how you evolve that to those groups.
Yeah.
So rather than kind of having programs that essentially you think, right, well, everyone who wants to do, I don't know, management capability, if everyone goes on this program, everyone's going to get the same idea. Well, that's not going to work if you've got 5 different generations, because actually they're going to have life experience that goes with that. So actually the experience that someone's going to have who might be a couple of decades in their career is going to be different from someone who is brand new to management. So again, that ability is just not going to align. So I think creating more platforms and programs, I think, is a really, really good idea, and allowing people a lot more accountability to own their own development, rather than kind of saying, well, you need to go on this program, and this program. Because again, so much of what we drive comes from our experience. And again, I'll go back to COVID, because I think one of the most interesting things that I've seen, especially as we recruit younger individuals, is that experience, that social experience just isn't there.
Yeah.
Because if you think they were about 15, 16, 17 during COVID, or even a little bit younger, when you kind of have your first job washing dishes, like in a pub, or that kind of first time that you were given that ability to go and do something by yourself, that wasn't there.
Yeah.
So again, if you've kind of got someone who's really naive in the workplace to then someone who's literally had maybe been redundant, all of those things, that is a huge culture, but also a huge societal clash as well.
Yeah.
So trying to push that all together, I think, is where people then really get it wrong.
Yeah.
But then also then when they're trying to create something individual for everyone, you then start breaking down the culture.
Yeah.
So I think that's where that element of moving from programs to platforms comes in, because you're still having an underlying, this is what we want you to learn, but here are different styles that you can do it, and this is, you're going to learn it, but in a way that relates to you.
Yeah.
I think also looking at how do you do that reverse upskilling, and that's just so important, and it's definitely not done enough.
Yes.
Because that is just it's an unlocked, and essentially it is a free way of kind of doing L&D, because you've kind of got people who maybe come in who I've learned much more tech-based understanding. They might have had more AI. They might have just been exposed to more things. I'm pretty sure my niece knows how to work the iPad better than I do.
Yeah, my daughters do.
But then, like I say, you'll have someone who understands or has a lot more historical knowledge of something and actually will be able to give some insights into something which will help that person. And rather than it being a butting heads kind of conversation, it actually could be, well, this is what's happened. How do I improve that by understanding X, Y, and Z? And it's then that kind of old, well, not even old, that kind of thing at the moment where people are saying, well, AI will take your jobs. It's like, no. AI is going to improve what you do so that you can do the job more effectively. And if, again, you've got two different experiences doing that, AI is only going to be able to help both of those individuals, but also help both of them in their understanding in their career. So that reverse mentoring is just so important. And the third one I would say, and it's really simple, but communication.
Yeah.
Like, communication is just so important, especially in this day and age where there is so much misinformation. And because also people view communication so differently. Like, how you read something on Teams or on WhatsApp can be so misinterpreted. And if you're so used to kind of texting, WhatsApping, and you're quite used to that, and maybe you don't know the person's tone enough to know it, you might get really easily offended by that or think something else, and it then spirals. And if you don't have the right forums and the right culture to either give feedback, speak up, do things in a way which allows any of that misunderstanding to come out, that makes it really difficult. So communication is just so important. And also meeting in the middle. And that's where that, again, going back to communication, people communicate, people trust more. That multi-generational piece doesn't become, oh my goodness, we've got loads of different people wanting different things into. Okay, well, actually, why don't we create things which do have the same foundations, but actually are more relatable? And how do we create forums where everyone's got a voice, but also help each other to not only build things, but also upskill each other in whatever they need to?
Yeah, love that. A couple of things. Oh, my brain is just spinning. I completely agree with you. And I'm glad you said about the reverse of it as well, because I think so many people talk about, you know, the older generation mentoring the younger generation. But actually, the younger generation can also do the reverse. And like you said, my daughter could probably teach me lots of things about, she's so quick on the iPad, so quick, that they could teach a lot to the kind of older generation. So a question about that. How have you seen it work maybe at British Airways? Where have you got like a mentoring in place where you've got that, where people can help each other, like mentor each other, reverse or...
I mean, we probably don't see it as much in... Oh, no, that's not actually... That's not very fair. Because obviously how we're set up is so... Well, you don't see it anywhere else because you've got crew and you've got the office staff. So we definitely see it from a crew perspective. So crew members who have been in the industry for a while, or also who have just got life experiences, are much more, I suppose, coaching to those who aren't. I think the other thing is, especially with that mentoring element, is to understand how people can move from potentially a crew career into a more management career or into a more office career, but also vice versa. I think one of the things we are seeing quite a bit of is, and again, especially going back into that generational piece, is we're seeing a lot more people at maybe later stages of life coming back into flying.
Yeah, I love that.
And that might be for a variety of reasons. It might be because they need to pay some more bills, they're looking after grandkids now, or they're kind of needing to support more family members, but also because they just want something to do, and actually it's a great opportunity to do things. And having those individuals in the workplace are brilliant because they absolutely give that first level of mentoring, but also they can then get that reverse mentoring back from the younger generation or people who are completely new to the industry. Because I think especially in aviation, it is a very technical industry. Like, you have to learn, our crews have to learn so much. Like, they have so much responsibility. So it is really technical. There is lots of things that you have to learn. But also there is lots of things that make life easier, and having that ability to have the variety of people who can help you understand things quite quickly, who can give you that social kind of support if it's required. Because again, our crews are so customer facing, and obviously in planes, they're 30,000 feet up in the air, there's nowhere to go. So they've got to kind of manage so many social pressures in literally pressurised environments. And actually having that generational wealth in a team like that is absolutely brilliant, because you'll be able to have someone who is going to be able to pick something up very quickly, but actually then maybe de-escalate something quite quickly as well. And I wouldn't say like we've got something very structured. It is something we're kind of looking at. But actually what we've kind of found is doing something quite naturally helps. Like, we've started something called Culture Champions, which is looking at how do we not necessarily dig into the D&I element, but it's very much around how do we make sure that the culture that we want to have at Euroflyer is embedded in everything that we do. And our whole point is like, how do we make this as natural as possible? We don't want it to be like, we've got to do this event, this event, this event. It's actually more about how do we really embed and what does it mean to the group that it's representing. So a really great example is around Pride. And one of the things we actually got big feedback about was like, they didn't want a massive big Pride event where it had the flag and everything like that. One of the biggest pieces of feedback we got was, actually, we just want to feel like we are part of that, a part of a community. We don't want us to feel like we are standing out. To us, that's actually more important than everything. So we really work to try and make that an underlying point of it.
Yeah.
But you only get that from that understanding, and also understanding what everyone in the community was. From the people maybe who have been in the community for a bit longer, or even within aviation longer, for them that was what that meant. But also for other people, it was they wanted a little bit of sparkle.
Yeah.
So again, it's really just trying to understand and using the social experiences that you've got within the workforce that are just so important.
Yeah, I agree. And we had the same feedback about Pride, saying don't just make it a 1 month thing or a day thing. Make me feel included for who I am, my authentic self, and that is enough for us. And the same for International Women's Day. I mean, we could have a whole chapter on International Women's Day. I think you've got the day, and it's great that we have this day to celebrate women. But this shouldn't just be a day thing.
No.
And I have very strong views about it, which I know you do as well.
Absolutely.
But it's and what I know about the multi-generational forces, like you said, like it's not, people put them in this stereotype, don't they? Like millennials are like that, and Gen X are like that, and it's not. Obviously, we are shaped by our experiences, but what everyone wants is, like you said, they want to come to work, have a good job, the
Feel
goals.
valued.
Yeah, feel valued, appreciated. Those are core to any role, and it's how you use that. So I completely agree with you. I want to talk to you because you mentioned again about career shapes.
Okay. I know you're very excited about this.
I know when we had that kind of intro call, like you were talking about squiggly careers and career shapes. I hadn't heard of it. So I want you to introduce our listeners, first of all. What are career shapes?
Okay. So, I mean, it is a very, very basic concept. And that's kind of the idea behind it. And it kind of came out of a little bit of a frustration of the 9 box, because you might be a complete lover of 9 box, and I'm really sorry if you are. And it serves a purpose, don't get me wrong, it absolutely serves a purpose. But as we kind of find, like when costs go up and down, sometimes 9 boxes and talent processes get very linked to a programme, or get linked to, you are top talent and you are X, Y and Z. And ironically, we then start putting more people in boxes. People then almost internally start feeling, well, I'm never going to get out of this box. How do I get to that box? And actually, what ends up happening is people who are in that top end always stay in that top end.
Yeah.
Not always for the right reasons. And actually the people who maybe are in the middle, or if you kind of think of more of the bottom, they sometimes don't feel like that is the right place for them, and they don't understand why. And we often don't have programs that then kind of go, well, if you're a solid performer or an expert, this is for you.
Yeah.
And actually that's something I've kind of seen quite a lot. We always have programs for your top right-hand corner.
Yep.
Not a huge amount for everyone else. And we did a bit of a last year, we tried to do something a little bit like that. We trialled out doing, I think it was 6 box rather than a 9 box. And we tailored to do 2 programs. That one was kind of more for people with wanting to kind of move on to the next step, kind of we're seeing more leaders, and then people who are more developing in their roles. And again, what we found, as you did, like the people who were looking at that next leadership step absolutely thrived in it. The group who were kind of more developing, it was just too broad. And actually, it just didn't land the way we kind of wanted it to. So kind of when we took all the feedback and took a step back, we were just like, actually, what is it that we are trying to do? Like, we could create about 1 million different programs, but everyone's, like I said earlier, everyone's now got different experiences. They all need different learning styles, all of those things. So, and we certainly don't have budgets that are going to cater for everyone to have their own individual program. So what came out of that was also kind of, what is it that people fundamentally want? And for our population, it was people wanted to know what their career pathway was. They wanted to understand what growth opportunities they had, and actually how do they develop onwards. And we kind of did a lot of thinking, brainstorming, trying different things out. And ultimately, we just realised the career ladder just doesn't really exist anymore. It does to maybe a certain point. So like when you're doing qualifications and things like that, there is obviously a point where you go step 1, step 2, step 3. But after that point, it just explodes. And again, if you look in the marketplace, there are so many different jobs, so many different industries that just didn't even exist a couple of years ago. So it's even more of a minefield to kind of understand where you're going. So what we kind of took a step back is like, what is it that we really, really want to nail down? And actually what we found was we need people to own their careers. Because what you tend to find is like you get put in a box, you go in a program, and then it's like, okay, manager, what's my next step? It's like, this is your career. This is what you want to do, not what I want you to do. And I do think that gets fundamentally missed.
I agree.
So the first bit was like, where's the accountability? The second piece was like, we need to have better conversations. Like, you can't just go in a program and then the program comes, have you had a check-in with your manager? And everyone goes, yes. We had an awkward 10-minute conversation. I was like, let's stop doing those. But also, a bit like people, careers are squiggly and they have different shapes and they just move around. You don't know what life is going to hit you with. And actually, if you have more flexibility in your career and actually what you want to do, it opens up so many opportunities. So the idea of career shapes was there are about 4 or 5 different shapes, and you can enter kind of the career shape matrix at any point. And the idea is you don't jump from shape to shape to shape. You can choose whatever pattern you go to.
Yeah.
And the idea between each shape is that it gives you an opportunity to develop and to look at what your next shape is. So, for example, one of your shapes might be, I want to develop. I want to develop in role. I want to understand the skill sets that I'm doing more. But from that point is you might actually just not enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah.
So actually, your next career shape maybe change direction.
Yeah.
And a 9 box will never give you that.
No.
Like a 9 box will probably put you in the bottom quadrant, which means maybe you're not a great performer, which is actually not very true. It just might be that it's just not worked out and you've tried hard. But actually, the next option is need to have a look at something different. And actually, that helps managers give feedback better. Because having a conversation where it's like, well, you've been put in the bottom box, and we're not quite sure what we're going to do with you, but it could be a pip, which is a really, really negative conversation. Or you could slip it to, okay, how has that gone? What's not worked? Have you thought about maybe doing this instead?
Yeah.
Much more positive, much more coaching, but also kind of, it's then not a negative. And the whole idea, what we're trying to do is to give people the empowerment to have ownership over their career.
Yeah.
So so we're playing around with it this year a lot more. So there's like a form that employees fill in that kind of a bit like, And someone in my team laughed at me because they were like, oh my God, it's like one of those 90s quizzes. So essentially, you know, when the magazines...
Love those quizzes and the magazines.
And literally, it's like, if you press A, you'll become like George Clooney from ER. So essentially, we've done something similar to that. Sadly, it's not going to be George Clooney, but I can still hope. So they get to that stage. So at the end, it kind of says, based on the algorithms, you've come out with this shape.
Right.
They then have a discussion with their managers, like, is this what, like, correct? Do you think that that's the right shape? Why is this where you've kind of landed yourself? And again, that conversation's already 2 times better because it's not the manager saying it's them. And if the manager disagrees, that's then a really great feedback conversation to go, okay, why do you think that's different? And then what's the next step? Well, actually, the next step is, what do you want to do in this shape? Is it you want to develop? Is it that you want to do a course on something that helps you do X? So again, rather than doing programs this year, we developed a grant that people can apply for based on their development or what they're wanting to achieve in that shape. And they apply for that. It gets taken to a panel, but then that is completely their own development. So we've really given career agility back to individuals, with the idea being that our BPs and our managers are there to guide them, not to tell them what to do. And it's empowering.
Yeah.
And that's what careers should be. So yeah, that is...
I love that. I love all of that. And what you said rings true, because I've worked in so many organisations where people just assume their career is in their managers or the organisation's hands, and they really don't understand, you know, engagement surveys. They feel like, I'm not being developed. And you're like, but especially for SMEs, but it's your career. You tell us how you want to progress. Like, what do you want to do? I get that the organisation has to aid the conversations and give them opportunities, but for me, my career has always been my responsibility, and I drive it myself and tell my manager what I need to get to where I was. In regards to that quiz, we were talking about that quiz, George Clooney. Like, how do you do it? Do you focus on like the skills or the behaviours? How do you assess what they have? So what are the skills or the knowledge or the behaviours they have and where they want to go to?
Now I'm trying to remember the quiz. So it's more about, what are they looking at in their role right now?
Yeah.
So it tends to be yes behaviours. It tends to be what stretch opportunities they're looking for. So it might be, are you more interested in doing something like a project? Are you interested more in doing kind of processes? Are you interested in doing more X, Y, and Z? So it kind of understands, like, are you looking... So the questions are trying to understand, A, what shape you most identify with, but also where are you more likely to get to as well. So some of the questions are more like, are you wanting to be more focused? Are you looking at the more process element of it? Are you wanting to get more in depth into something, which will probably then lead you more towards a specialist end, or at least for that moment in time. Whereas someone that's kind of like, actually, I feel I've reached the limit. I just want to do something else. I'm getting really, really itchy feet. I love what I'm doing, but I'm just a bit tapped out.
Yeah.
Actually, your 2 options there could be, you might be kind of sitting on like leadership track, or actually it might be go do something else.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the nice thing. It's like, it doesn't always assume that just because you've reached the top, that means you go to the next bit.
Yeah.
It could actually mean, well, actually, this might be as far as you can get here. What would be great is actually if you went to do something else elsewhere, gains a different experience, and come back and do something else again. And that's the other thing. We also want people to kind of be brave and kind of go, your career doesn't have to start and end here.
Yeah.
It can go somewhere else. It can come back, like all of those things. And that is more difficult in an economy like today, where moving jobs is always a bit more of a risk. So you do have to be a bit brave with that. But I do think it does help, and it helps businesses because there is that natural attrition that comes with it. And then that's also bringing in new ideas and different perspectives. But you do have to be brave, and managers have to be brave to be able to coach that idea as well to people and do it the right way. So it doesn't come across of, please just go.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And I find that, like you said, that especially with small businesses, because I work in a small business, that if there isn't that progression, so say, for example, the company just doesn't have a senior in that role or doesn't need 5 seniors in that role, but this person's been in the role for 1.5 years, you worry, but they're going to be looking to leave if I don't offer them a promotion. Yeah. So what other ways, you've kind of spoke about this already, but what other ways do you help managers aid them in the conversations to say, look, it doesn't have to be like always a promotion, and also you could stay in a role for 5 years and still be gaining lots of skills and knowledge.
I mean, especially, so Euroflyers, in comparison to whole of BA, is quite small. Like, it's about 1,000 people. GGS is about 1,000 people. And obviously BA's very big.
Yeah.
So actually the career pathways within some of the smaller subsidiaries, as we call them, they are much, much, much smaller. And like you say, there aren't going to be millions of seniors. There aren't going to be lots of people. But actually what we do have the opportunity for is breadth.
Yeah.
Because what we tend to do is where, like in any kind of big corporate, you tend to have volume in one specific area. The subsidiaries, we very much focus in on breadth of a smaller end, but you have ownership of the end to end, which is a skill set you don't often get, which is why I absolutely love it. But I think one of the things then that does create is, like you say, bit of frustration because where do I go next? But it does unlock an opportunity because there are so many things someone has to do. You can recreate roles left, right and centre.
Yeah.
And I think there's part of that is one of the things we do absolutely now do is look at the org every single year. And it's not around looking at it from a restructuring perspective. It's more looking at what are the skills that we need? What are the longer term investments we need to look at? And I can hand on heart say what we needed last year definitely differs to what we need this year because we're in a different place. We've also had the Middle East, which has not been helpful.
Yeah. No, at all.
So again, because there is that shift, there are always opportunities. And what we really do encourage is that curiosity, like what other things could you be doing to help move your career forward? I think the biggest thing is we need people to come forward and say, what is it that they're looking to do next? And that's again where Career Shapes comes and helps because it opens up that conversation. But so much of it is around stretch and project work. Like there are always projects happening left, right and centre. So getting people involved in projects is really, really a great opportunity because it gives them exposure to maybe a different area of the business, or it gives them an opportunity to maybe be a bit more visible to another team. But the other thing we really push is go and do something different.
Yeah.
Like even within the team, you could swap roles with someone.
Yeah.
If there's enough of most of our roles have got some sort of kind of crossover that gives them a little bit more flexibility to have that crossover element. You could go and do that. Like, rather, if you're a HRBP, why don't you go and do an OD role for a little bit? So actually you get that understanding and see something that's very, very focused. If you focus just on maybe kind of people AI, what about training up and doing like a HR advisor role for a little bit and getting that different exposure, even if it's for 6 months? And actually doing it when it's a quieter period is really, really great. So ironically for HR, that's probably in the summer for us, whereas the operation is probably in the winter. Which is the other way around, but it's also then being savvy. So if you know in the winter it's downtime, it's a good opportunity to do projects, why don't you start looking ahead and kind of going, well, here are all the things we couldn't do in the summer because we were flat off our feet doing all the ops. We could get this person to do this and this person. That will take all the things that they've been looking to do and actually see if they like it.
Yeah.
There's got to be creativity. You've got to also not just assume it's there, handed to you on a plate.
Yeah.
So, and that's where I think, again, it's been easier with massive programmes to do them because there's a cost element of it. You can get a wide number of people involved. But I just don't think there is good investment as they have been because everyone wants something different now.
Yeah. No,
and they don't offer all that stretch, that progression, that project element, that ability to be agile and try and think about something else. So I think it's being creative, being smart around how you're planning your year and what opportunities that you could do. And I think just take risks sometimes. Like, it is hard. It is really, really hard from that perspective, and especially when things are a bit more difficult. But taking risks does help.
I agree. What gems?
Yeah,
100%.
absolutely.
Perfect. My last thing I want to talk to you about, which is really important, and it's something that I know that you drive, is like high performance, but not at the expense of high pressure. Like, what would you say is the difference between creating a high performance culture to a high pressure kind of culture?
I mean, high pressure, I think of it as literally like my pressure cooker on my actor fry. Like, you turn it on, you wait for it, and it'll intensely do something.
Yeah.
But if you let it go for too long, something will pop.
Yeah.
And that is high pressure.
Yeah.
Like, you can do an intensity for a solid amount of time. And again, that's probably what a lot of businesses did during COVID. They went to that high pressure moment, fixed a lot of things in a short period of time. but no one can sustain that forever in a day.
Yeah.
Whereas high performance is around how do you have that sustainable investment of both leadership, but also how people feel and show up every day in the business. Because high performance doesn't always just mean about getting great results. High performance also means that you've got happy, healthy employees that come to work and actually enjoy coming to work. Like, you will get great performance if someone turns up and they like being there and they are happy to be there, because they will come in and they will put in 100% effort. Someone who comes in who is burnt out, who is absolutely at their end of their tether, is not going to come and put in 100%, and your performance is going to drop. And that only comes through if you are showing up, and that comes from your leadership teams. That's got to come top down. But it's also, it can't be something that, I don't know, that's on your wall that you constantly point to. It's got to be so embedded and not visible. Like, we talk about culture and about how that has an impact on performance, but it really does. If you have a culture that people live and breathe and really, really want to, I suppose, embody, like our behaviours for Eurofly, like one of them is make it happen. The other is all in every day, which is like, we stick in together. All of us will come together to help. If there is a problem, we will all come together and help one another out. And I do fundamentally believe that is a very core part of our culture. And that's what makes a day that might have been an absolute horrendous operational day feel better, because we all know we clunged in together to make it work. And I think that has such a big impact, and that's where it becomes more of a high performing team, because everyone is coming together and wanting to come together. Whereas that high pressure would have been everyone would be coming together but frantically, and everyone would be trying to be the striker and kicking the ball into the net, and someone would have tripped over something and something else would have been knocked over. And that's, I think, the really fundamental difference. It's not about speed. It's not about trying to do it all in one go. It's more about getting people to the place where they will put up their hands, and they'll put it up willingly, because they fundamentally believe what they're doing is right. And also they want to do it because they fundamentally believe in where we're going.
Yeah, I just love that. Like, teamwork is so important. It's not blame. It's not political. It's not that that's your responsibility, this is mine. It's saying we all need the company to survive and do well. Let's pull together as a team. And we have that at How Now as well. So I love hearing that you have the same. The importance, obviously, of high performing is everyone knows their goals and they know what they're trying to achieve. How do you ensure that people do know, like, that how their role fits into the wider organisation kind of outcomes?
It is. And do you know what? I'm still trying to work out how to do goals well. I just don't think anyone's totally cracked it yet. No one's cracked it. I was at an event a couple of weeks ago, and there was an amazing lady who was talking about, like, we're just not really doing goals. We're just going to let them have a go. And I was like, I really want to see how that goes, because I just want to see, because like 9 times out of 10, you say it's goal setting time and you just see everyone's faces drop and go, great, I've got to put in 5 goals on a piece of paper that at the end of the year, you're going to tell me if I've done. I was like, I know. How do we make it better? And one of the things we've tried to do this year is something called fast goals, which is, I suppose, an evolution of SMART goals.
Yeah.
The idea is that you check in on them and they are adaptable. And I think that's the first thing, is like 9 times out of 10, someone will do a goal at the start of the year, forget about it for the next 11 months. And at the end of the month, they go, how did they go? Like, oh, I didn't realise that was a goal. Oh, I mean, there's been a world war since that happened, but fine.
So much has changed.
I know, it's amazing. So that element of it is completely pointless. Like, it really, really is. What makes goals more, I suppose, relatable is they really have to be in line with what's happening right now.
Yeah.
If you are going to do goals, make sure they're not your job description. Make sure that they actually are going to have an impact on what you're doing and what the company is doing. Because if it's just ticking a box, you're just not going to feel very invested in it. If it's actually something that you can see is going to help the business, you are going to be a lot more invested in it as well. But I think also just feeling that actually you've got an opportunity to flex it if it's changes. Like, obviously after the last 6 months, we've kind of said to everyone, have a look at your fast goals, because I guarantee you at least one of them probably will need a tweak, because so much has happened in the last 6 months. And actually that's okay. So by the end of the year, a person might have had 12 different goals, but 6 of them might actually just have never happened. Yeah. And you've parked them after the first quarter because it completely wasn't possible, but that they've then actually done something which is credible and actually does have a much bigger impact for them in the business. I'm still working on it. But I think at least the minimum is keep them agile, keep them relatable to the business so that people actually feel what they're doing is having an impact and it's not just a tick box.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And tell me when you crack it.
I will.
The whole HR population would love to hear. And I agree with you because I've been in companies before where they say I haven't done all my goals, but I've done this amazing initiative that has moved the dial on the business, but that's not going to be recognised because it's not my goal. And I was like, how can that not be? Of course it should be recognised because it, like you said, they're fluid and so much changes within the year. But I just think, people struggle with
what they should put in.
What you should put in. Even managers struggle with what they should put in for their employees.
And I think it's really hard because you kind of have... It's very easy when you've kind of put KPIs and metrics in.
Yeah.
But again, it's then you constantly chasing a number rather than how do I move the dial? And I think that's the bit that still needs a bit more embedding, especially in more KPI-driven departments, is how do I move the dial, not how do I make sure X happens?
Yeah.
We're on that journey.
No, I'll be waiting for the update on that journey. Last kind of question for you, because I know we're running out of time, although we did say that me and you could talk for hours,
absolutely.
So we're on a strict kind of timer. If you could give one piece of kind of advice to our listeners, our viewers, what would it be?
Oh.
Buy a dog. No, not a dog. We were talking about dogs earlier.
Get a Labrador. I would say build your people strategy around real people. Don't just build it around a framework that has been there forever and a day. Look at your organisation. One of the biggest things that I did last year is do a little bit of a persona analysis of our organisation. And it was so insightful because it really gave me the understanding of who is actually in Euroflyer, who are in the different departments. And from that, I could make much better decisions about actually, if we're going to spend money, this is where we're going to spend it on. If we're going to make a long-term strategy and where we want to do investments, especially if we want to do apprenticeships, this is what we should be doing.
Yeah.
So don't just assume because this is what it's always been is the case. And I know I know that's not the norm, but I would almost say dive deeper. Base it on real people. Base it on who is in your business today and who you probably will have in your business over the next couple of years. And make sure it's flexible because the world just keeps on changing.
Yeah.
And be ready to pivot as soon as possible. And if you need to pivot, that's okay.
Yeah. Great advice. Love it. Thank you so much,
Monika,
for joining me. And anyone listening, watching, you can link in with Monika on LinkedIn or myself. And we'll see you for the next episode.
This episode of L&D Disrupt is brought to you by How Now, the learning platform that actually makes learning matter. Because let's face it, you could push out loads of content, track skills in a spreadsheet, drown in admin, and still not know what's working. Or you could use How Now to connect your people to the skills they need. Deliver learning in the flow of work and prove it's making a difference. That's how modern companies like Depop, Trainline, Crunchyroll, So Energy, Forsaven, TomTom, Investec, and so many more do it. Learn more at gethownow.com.